So we're continuing our series on the ketogenic diet. And before we talked a little bit about the history, but I wanted to continue a little bit on seizures because that's how the ketogenic diet was established in the first place. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it's important to understand where this idea came from and what are some of the benefits. And we're going to talk about the specific benefits to the brain when we talk about a ketogenic diet at some point. But right now I just wanted to talk about ketogenesis and seizures because that's where this whole idea began, because we didn't have medications in the past to treat seizures. And so almost 75% of kids or people who had seizure disorders were treated with ketogenic diets at some point in time to try to control their seizures until those medications became available. So now it's important to understand this because sometimes understanding where things originated and how they work makes you be able to understand, is this something you're going to be able to do, and is it going to have the benefits that you want for you, and is it right for you, right? So we need to understand that a little bit. So along the time that this is being studied, the scientific method over time is being really well developed, and somebody finally decided to actually do the study to compare kids who had seizure disorders on medications who were not responsive to those medications and were having lots of seizures anyway, to kids who were put on the ketogenic diet to see what would happen between those two groups, and would you be able to control the seizures in kids just with the ketogenic diet. So in 1998, a group published a study on the ketogenic diet, and what they did was they fed kids with a 4-to-1 ratio, which is four times the fat to 1 of protein plus carbs. Okay, it's very different than most of the diets that we see. A lot of times we see 1 to 3 to 1, 1 protein to 3 carbs to 1 fat, or 1 to 2 to 1, 1 protein to 2 carbs to 1 fat. But this was completely flipping things around, where you were doing 4 times the fat as the total protein and carbohydrates. So most of your calories were actually coming from fat. Now this was very, very different than what had been done by a lot of people in the past. And what they found was that even at 6 months, more than 50% of kids experienced almost a reduction by 50% in the number of seizures they had and the ability to reduce their medications. Now the problem with this was it was oftentimes hard for a lot of the families to continue this diet over a long period of time and maintain it. So even though they got pretty good results, they weren't able to maintain it over a long period of time. And over 90% reduction in seizures for about 15 to 20% of these kids. So people who were able to continue it longer actually had a really good benefit over a long period of time. So the effects seem to be getting better over time, but fewer and fewer people were able to stick with it for a longer period of time. So that was one of the biggest challenges that people had. Not that it didn't work, but that it worked pretty good for most people, and over time it worked better, but it was really hard to keep up with it over time. Now, one of the things that was really important about this study was that they didn't just throw kids into ketosis. They didn't just say, okay, this is how you eat, go do it. They actually brought these kids into the hospital, and they watched them in the hospital, and they fasted them for 2 days. Okay, now this is going to be really important when we get to one of our next videos, and we're going to talk about why would you fast before you go into a ketogenic diet? Why is that important? Why does that help? Why would they even think about doing that? And so they fasted these kids for 2 days, and then they slowly reintroduced a meal. It was like what they called an eggnog, okay, but it's like a shake, okay, but it was mostly fat. And then they added a little bit of protein and a little bit of carbs to it to get that 4-to-1 ratio. And they slowly introduced it. They gave one meal over the course of the day, like 1/3 of the daily requirements. And then they started doing like 1/3 and 2/3. And then they started introducing a meal that fit that ratio, a real meal with real food, and then slowly weaned off of those shakes or the eggnog, as they called it, to get back to real food. Okay. And that's how they achieved those results of greater than 50% reduction in 50% of the kids, and greater than 90% reduction for 15 to 20% over the course of the year that they studied these kids. So this can have a huge impact if done correctly. And what they found that this was one of the safest ways to do this, and the most reliable ways to get kids into ketosis and keep them there over time, and gradually get them there without having any problems. All right, and we're going to talk about some of the difficulties that come up when trying to get into ketosis, some of the things that you need to make sure that you add back if you're going to try ketosis, some of the things that you might be missing, some of the things that you need to increase, and so forth in some of our later videos. Okay, but you can see there's a huge benefit to those with seizures. So obviously, somebody with a problem with their brain or has a behavior or neurological disorder may actually have some benefits out of ketosis if we do it properly. Okay, so the key here is to make sure that we start learning what exactly is ketosis and how do we get there in a safe, reliable way and stay there without causing damage to our health and getting the benefits. Hope that helped, and as always, please check us out at silenceyourfatgene.com for more videos and check out the rest of the series. In some of our next videos, like I said, we're going to talk about ways to achieve ketosis, things that you don't want to do, things you might be missing as you try ketosis, things that you need to add back in or get rid of, and more information about ketosis and the ketogenic diet as we go through this whole series. Hope that helped. We'll see you at the next video.